The Galactic Union Academy's mess hall operated on a simple philosophy: feed everyone, offend no one, and maintain at least the minimum structural integrity required to survive a disagreement between species with incompatible definitions of personal space. It had managed this for 63 years. It was about to have a very educational evening. Lily Chun was eating alone, which was not unusual. She had a corner table, back to the wall, sightlines to all three exits, a habit so deeply ingrained she'd stopped noticing she did it. Her tray held a bowl of rice, some protein that approximated chicken if you didn't think too hard about it, and a cup of tea she'd been nursing for 20 minutes while she read. The book was old, physical, printed on actual paper, the spine cracked from years of opening. The title, in faded lettering, Animal Behavior and Predator-Prey Dynamics, a field guide to Earth's megafauna. She was on the chapter about wolves. The 6 cadets who approached her table were not being subtle about it. They were Dravosi, a species from the Dravos cluster, bipedal, averaging about 6.5 feet, with gray skin, double-jointed limbs, and a social structure built entirely around dominance hierarchies. They were loud by nature. They moved in groups by instinct. They communicated status through physical positioning, volume, and something their linguists politely called territorial assertion. Most species at the Academy had learned to give Dravosi cadets a wide berth during their first semester, before they adjusted to multi-species environments. These 6 were first semester. Their leader, a cadet named Greth, broad-shouldered even by Dravosi standards, stopped at Lily's table and looked down at her with the patient confidence of someone who has never once had to wonder if they were the most dangerous thing in the room. "Human," he said. "This table is ours." Lily turned a page. "I don't see your name on it," she said. This was, word for word, the wrong thing to say to a first-semester Dravosi cadet in front of his social group. Greth's secondary eyelids, a Dravosi threat display, slid halfway closed. Behind him, his 5 companions spread slightly, a formation so instinctive they probably weren't aware they were doing it. "We are 6, Greth said. "You are 1. The math is simple." Lily looked up from her book then. She had dark eyes, the kind that didn't perform anything, didn't go wide to signal fear, didn't narrow to signal aggression. They just observed, with the same calm, total attention that a naturalist gives a specimen they find particularly interesting. She looked at Greth. Then she looked at each of his companions in turn, slowly, making it clear she was counting them. Then she looked back at Greth. "You're right," she said. "The math is simple." She closed her book, folded her hands on the table, and waited. Jack Okafor arrived at the mess hall 4 minutes later, carrying a tray piled with an amount of food that would have concerned a nutritionist and delighted a geological survey team. He was human, Nigerian-born, with the kind of build that made structural engineers feel vaguely competitive, and he had been Lily's assigned study partner since orientation, a pairing that had initially confused their coordinator and eventually made a great deal of sense to everyone involved. He saw the situation from the doorway. 6 Dravosi cadets around Lily's table. Lily sitting perfectly still, hands folded, watching Greth the way a chess player watches the board 3 moves ahead. Greth leaning forward, secondary eyelids fully closed now, deep threat display, one hand flat on the table in the Dravosi gesture that roughly translated to "This is my territory, and I am being generous by explaining this to you." Jack set his tray down at the nearest empty table. He sat. He picked up his fork. He began eating, watching with the calm attention of someone who has seen this particular shape of situation before and knows exactly how it resolves. Around the mess hall, other cadets had noticed. The ambient noise had dropped by about 30%. The biological universal signal for something interesting and possibly dangerous is happening. "You have 10 seconds, Greth was saying, to remove yourself from." "Can I ask you something?" Lily said. Greth stopped. This was not the expected response to a Dravosi territorial countdown. His secondary eyelids flickered. "What? Have you read the Academy's Xenobiology prerequisite materials?" A pause. "What does that have to do with?" "The chapter on Earth," Lily said. "Specifically the section on human behavioral evolution. Did you read it?" "I skimmed it," Greth said, which among Dravosi was a perfectly normal admission. Their educational culture valued breadth over depth. "There's a passage," Lily said, "about persistence hunting. Do you know what that is?" Greth's companions exchanged glances. This was not how confrontations were supposed to go. Confrontations were supposed to involve volume and posturing, not study questions. It's irrelevant, Greth said. It's actually very relevant, Lily said pleasantly. Persistence hunting is a technique humans used for about 2 million years. Before we had weapons worth mentioning. Before we had any particular physical advantage over the things we hunted. She picked up her tea, took a sip, set it down. We would find something, a deer, an antelope, something bigger and faster than us, and we would follow it. Not chase it. Follow it. For hours. Sometimes days. We don't overheat the way most mammals do, and we have a gait that's extraordinarily efficient over long distances, so we would just keep going until whatever we were following collapsed from exhaustion. The mess hall was now at about 15% of its normal noise level. We ran animals to death, Lily said. With patience. That's the whole technique. We simply refused to stop. Greth stared at her. Why are you telling me this? Because you said the math was simple, Lily said. 6 versus 1. I want to make sure you're doing the right math. A silence. I'm not threatening you, she added, and her voice was so genuinely, pleasantly conversational that it somehow made the words more unsettling. I'm giving you information, which is actually the human thing to do. We like to give people information before situations develop. It's a courtesy. Greth's secondary eyelids had retracted completely. The territorial assertion hand had lifted off the table. Something in his posture had shifted, not retreat exactly, but recalibration. The Dravosi were a dominant species on their homeworld. They understood hierarchies. They understood threat assessment. They were, when it came down to it, a species that had survived by being good at reading danger. Something in Lily Chin's calm gray gaze was registering on some very old, very deep part of Greth's threat assessment system, and it was not registering as prey. There is something else in that chapter, said a new voice. Everyone turned. Jack had carried his tray over without anyone noticing him move, which, given that he was 6'2" and built like a forward on a professional rugby team, was a notable achievement. He set his tray down at Lily's table, pulled out the chair across from her, and sat with the comfortable ease of someone joining a friend for dinner. The part about cooperative hunting, Jack said, picking up his fork again. Humans don't just persistence hunt individually. We coordinate. Split roles. One group drives, one group waits ahead. We figured out communication specifically so we could hunt things that were bigger than us. He looked at Greth thoughtfully. There are 2 of us at this table right now, he said. I just wanted to make sure the math was clear. The silence in the mess hall lasted for 4 full seconds. Then Greth did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He straightened. His secondary eyelids normalized. He looked at Lily, then at Jack, then back at Lily, and he performed the Dravosi gesture that their academy orientation materials described as acknowledging a superior position, left hand open, turned outward. We will find another table, he said. There's a good one by the east window, Lily said. Sightlines on all 3 exits. Greth looked at her sharply. The table I wanted when I came in, she added. But it was taken. Something moved in Greth's expression. Recalibration again, but deeper this time. The specific shift of a person who has just discovered that what they thought was a passive situation was, in fact, a situation in which someone else had been the most aware person in the room the entire time. He nodded once, something between respect and wariness. Then he led his companions toward the east window. Jack watched them go, then looked at Lily. Persistence hunting, he said. Really? It was in the chapter. She opened her book again. I wasn't wrong. You were not wrong. He picked up his fork. You were also doing that thing where you explain something completely true in a way that sounds like a threat without technically being a threat. I was giving them information, Lily said serenely. You were giving them information. As a courtesy. As a courtesy. Jack ate in silence for a moment. You had the exit angles on this table before they walked over. I always check exit angles. You knew they'd back down. Lily turned a page. I assessed it as likely, she said. Dravosi dominance hierarchies respond to confident threat signals from species they don't have established dominance data on. We're an unknown quantity to them. The uncertainty was the point. Jack nodded slowly. And if the uncertainty hadn't been enough? Lily was quiet for a moment. She took a sip of her tea. Then it would have become a persistence problem, she said. And we're very good at those. Across the mess hall, at the east window table, Greth pulled out his Academy-issued datapad and opened the Xenobiology prerequisite materials. He found the chapter on Earth. This time, he did not skim.